Anyway, that was an important part of my life because the dairy meant a lot to us. Matter of fact, it ended up where I had 4 brothers. We all delivered milk, and boy, I hated getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and delivering milk. I said, boy, when I grow up, I'm not going to have a job like this. So what did I do? I grew up and I delivered babies at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, but anyway, it was in the early 50s that the other large dairies in town were all unionized. There were 3, 4, 5 smaller dairies, and we were in the suburbs of Pittsburgh. And a strike came along, and my dad said, well, we can't deliver milk. I said, we're not union, are we? He said, no, we just can't deliver because it's too dangerous. And boy, this really bothers me. I said, what do you mean you can't deliver it? They said, well, they could get violent. I said, what? And I wanted him to take some guns and go out there and say, no, you go and get somebody and deliver this. He said, no, they'll turn the trucks over. They'll destroy your property. And boy, that was an eye-opener to me because, you know, our drivers, it's probably so many of your businesses, small businesses, people are like family. I mean, we'd have Christmas parties and everything together, and there was no confrontation. They were getting paid well, and even back then they had hospital benefits, which is rather surprising to me that back that early on that it was a non-union dairy and they weren't coerced. They were getting, you know, health benefits. But here they came along and intimidated and said that we couldn't deliver. The only good part about that story is after a strike or two, that's when we went from 2 trucks up to 12 trucks up to 20 trucks. So there were a lot of customers then leaving, so the market did work to some degree. But that was my introduction about how tough they can be. And of course, these other stories over here are just horrible stories. And it is illegal use of force. And that is our real problem. Not only is it the illegal force of a union thug coming in and destroying your truck, but what about the force of government? That is what is really intimidating. I mean, in a way, probably the law still would protect, you know, if the thugs come in, you catch them destroying your property, you still have recourse and they would still accept this. But the real evil is the use of government power to do the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. The government in a free society, which is supposed to be limited, is supposed to guarantee the contract, not to write and impose and force the contract on the people. But then what they do is they come along and say that we will write the contract. They're always involved in labor law. 1935, even though that was the year I was born, was a bad year. I mean, National Labor Relations Board, and just think about what they've done. But the coercion, the setting of prices is horrible. Anybody? Yeah, there's a couple here that might remember 1971, wage and price control. What a disaster. The wage and price control bill, at that time, it was so emphatic to me because at that time I was studying Austrian economics and how Mises taught about when it topples over into socialism is when there's no pricing structure. When Nixon put, you know, our conservative president put wage and price controls on the whole community, it just stopped. I mean, there were so many shortages immediately, and it was amazing. I said, you know, this is like a socialist economy. But fortunately, that didn't last too long, but they have been interfering. And I tell working people that, you know, when they want to use government force to keep their wages higher than they should be, believe me, government can come along someday and use their force as they have in the past with wage and price controls to keep your wages lower than they should be. So you lose your rights by caving in and saying that you think you're going to get something and that you end up losing it. But the minimum wage law is the same thing, another setting of prices. And of course the prevailing wage. I had a real eye-opener to tell me about how slow things move was, we talked about prevailing wages, David Spake, and I was on banking back in the early, I was there from 76 to 84. And it seemed like there were some pretty hot discussions back then. And then I left. I said, I can't do this for the rest of my life, be in politics all this time. So I said, I got to go back and do some medicine, do something, make a real living. And so I went back and practiced medicine for 12 years. And I had a notion that maybe 1994 was a good year, you know, and the Republicans have repented and they were going to really do a good job and solve our problems. So I ran in '96, going back. You know, with the first week back, I was in a committee hearing. They had put me on labor and education at that time. And one of the very first discussions was on Davis-Bacon. And I thought, that's exactly where it was when I left. I mean, the same debate, same room, same arguments, everything else. Nobody had resolved it yet. But maybe someday we will. We will when the people believe in liberty. We will when this generation I'm talking to and I'm encouraged by, when they come up and they decide, yes, the Constitution is worth something, liberty is worthwhile, personal liberty is across the board, it's for labor and it's for social reasons and the whole works. That's